Good afternoon, this is Travis Miller with Sexy Skirt Tackle. And today we're going to talk flipping jigs. What better subject to talk in the middle of winter up here in New England than the summertime fish pattern that catches big fish? But we got something else to talk about. So by the time you're watching this video, Sexy Skirt Tackle will be available for sale. It'll be on Instagram and Facebook to start out. All purchases will be through Venmo. I'm not going to create a website until I move a significant amount of product, but you can always reach me through IM, or you can email me at sexyskirttackle@gmail.com. We're going to have episodes that I'm going to explain all the products that we use, why we're better than the competition, and why you should be throwing Sexy Skirt Tackle products. But the flipping jigs, 2 years in the making to make this jig, to get it exactly the way I want it. I want to go through this and I want to explain to you every piece of that jig and why it is the way it is and the way it's going to be sold to you, the customer. I'm going to show some competition. I'm going to show you some brand names, and I'm going to show you some local hand-tied just through. Everybody's making jigs nowadays, right? It's not a secret. Guys are finding out that they can go on the lure parts online, or they can go to Tackle Direct and they can buy all the pieces and they can assemble a jig. Well, that's great, but there's got to be some thought behind why you're making that jig the way you are. And at Sexy Skirt Tackle, as I said before, 2 years in the making to make this flipping jig. I'm going to explain why it'll be the best flipping jig you ever throw. 2 years ago, I started flipping mats up at Ticonderoga. And it wasn't like I expected it to be. I got my butt kicked. And I figured out, so from that point on, I said, well, that's not going to happen again. I've got to figure this out. And I have. It's been a long process. I've spent a lot of money throwing a lot of jigs. But I've learned something from everything that I did. I learned a lot of what not to do, but there was a few jigs that I threw that I liked. But I'm not going to comment on here I'm not on here to bash any manufacturer, big or small. I'm simply on here to tell you that this jig is going to meet everything that you have a desire for in a flipping jig. Hands down. Guarantee it. And this little video right here can be for the beginner, or it can be for the pro that's out there flipping all summer long. Now listen, I'm from New England. We chase smallmouths up here. Ned rigs, drop shots, swim baits, you name it, and I'll throw them. I will. But nothing is funner than flipping that 1 ounce jig into that mat or that thick laydown and hearing that braid go zinging when you set that hook. I would chase largemouths flipping all day long. 2 years to make this little guy right here. And I'm going to show you why. That head right there is an Arky style head. This, I'm not going to mention the brand, that's labeled as a flipping jig. That is, it's a 1 ounce flipping jig. But the head on that, see that? Not so good. This is also labeled as a 1 ounce flipping jig. See that head? Horrible. Horrible. You can flip this into wood. This is a good head to flip into wood. But when you flip it into a mat of grass, you're going to pull out the whole damn river bottom. You don't want that. This one here is actually funny. This was labeled as a flipping jig. That is a swim jig all day long. Now this was a local, I shouldn't even say local. It was a guy just tying jigs and wanting to sell them. And this is what he labeled as a flipping jig. I don't know where he got that from. Trash. This little guy, same thing. This is a 1 ounce. It's a peanut style head, but it's got a rattle. Well, I didn't want a rattle. So I spent all this money. I spent hundreds of dollars flipping jigs, trying to find what I liked, and I never did. I don't know what took me so long. A couple $100 in, I decided, you know what? Maybe I should try making my own. And that's what I did. A lot of money and a lot of time went into this jig right here. This is an Arky style jig. I don't think there is a flipping angler out there who would not agree that an Arky style head is by far the best jig head for flipping. You can flip it into grass, you can flip it into wood and thick laydowns, you can flip matted grass with it if you want. This is the all-purpose flipping jig that will do it all. Comes on a very heavy Gamakatsu hook. Very sharp, will stay sharp. And when you set the hook with that heavy braid, it drives it right home. On the back of that hook is probably one of my favorite things about that hook. That is the biggest keeper for bait, for trailers that I have ever found on a bait, on a flipping jig. It's awesome. There's no need to super glue when you put a trailer on this hook. When your trailer falls off of this bait keeper, it needs to be replaced anyway. There's no reason for super glue. It's just, it's shot at that point. The hook will not bend. You will not bend this hook. You can get stuck. You will get it stuck periodically. It's going to happen. All flipping jigs are going to get stuck. But with this head design and this line tie, where it's positioned at right there, it is your best odds of getting through the thickest of cover that you can find without pulling up half the river bottom and getting stuck in the laydown. Part of the reason that a lot of your flipping jigs are better in wood and horrible in grass, or great in grass and horrible in wood, believe it or not, what I've found, it's this weed guard right here. This weed guard. This will determine what allows you to flip it into that gnarly laydown and get it out. This weed guard is what allows you to flip this bait through that wicked thick grass and pull it out and hop it out and bounce it out, however you want to fish it, without pulling half the weed bottom with you. What I found with these other manufacturers is the weed guards were either too flimsy or way too stiff. If they're way too stiff, you're going to grab all the weeds. You're going to toss this in that hole, and you're going to pull back, and you're going to be fine. Sometimes you're going to toss it in that hole, and the current's going to have you, and you're going to be pulling up, you're going to have to come back through that grass. If you use one of them heavy weed guards, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a big problem. The flip side of that is if you have too stiff of a weed guard, it also prevents a hook set. And I don't know how many guys know this. If you're experienced, you know this. You pull the jig out of the pack, the first thing you do, you trim the weed guard. Right? You trim the weed guard, you trim the skirt a lot of times. With the Sexy Skirt Tackle flipping jig, you don't need to do that. The weed guard has been trimmed for you. The weed guard has been trimmed for you to go right in front of that barb, which is exactly where you want it. The skirt has been trimmed already. There's no reason. When you pull this bait out of the package, all you have to do is tie on and throw it. You don't have to sit there on your front deck after you just lost 3 jigs in this laydown now that you had prepared to throw. Now you got to break one out of the package, trim the skirt, trim the weed guard. These jigs, it's done for you. You take this out of the package, you flip it, it's ready to go. All you got to do is put a trailer on it. The next part I want to talk about, so that covers the weed guard, the hook, and the head, is the skirt. Listen, we all know that when you're flipping 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce, a ½ ounce, in the spring maybe ½ ounce, maybe up to a 1 1/4 ounce if you're on a lake that has a deep weed line and you're trying to flip down to 12, 13, 14 feet, you might want to go to 1 1/4. The bottom line is it's all about fall, right? This isn't a jig. This jig is a flipping jig. This isn't designed to crawl along the bottom of the river or bottom of the lake. It's not a football head. It's not designed to cast out and bring it back through the grass reeling at a steady retrieve. It's a swim jig. This is a flipping jig. It's meant for flipping. So when you're flipping, everybody knows this, that it fishes flipping jigs consistently. It's about the fall rate, right? This is a reaction. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is It's jig fishing, but this is about the reaction. That bait goes down, and bam, you want that bass to fall. You want it to fall right in front of that bass, and he's going to grab it. He might not even be hungry. He just sees something coming down, it's coming down fast, and it's moving water, and he's going to eat it. Instinct, right? When you're out there flipping heavy mats, you don't expect to throw this down and have a jig and have a bass swim over to it from 15 feet away or 20 feet away. Could it happen? Absolutely. That's why when you're flipping jigs, you throw it down, you hop it a couple times, you bring it back up. But it's fall rate, right? How many times when you're flipping jigs do they bite it on an initial fall? About 80% of the time. I would even say for me, probably about 90% of the time. Maybe the last 10% might happen after I hop it once or twice, but usually it's on the initial fall. Maybe 1% of the time they actually catch it on the short swim back to the boat. But I've always just attributed that to that fish just happened to be swimming around, and then was in the front of his face when I pulled it back in. But anyway, the fall rate, that's what's key. That was another reason I wanted to start making my own flipping jigs. I couldn't find one with the fall rate. And I couldn't figure out why. I thought, well, so I eliminated the trailer pretty quickly, right? Bigger trailer, it's going to fall slower. Smaller trailer, it's going to fall faster, right? It's resistance in the water. It makes sense. So you can maneuver, you can play around with that, but then I'd put on the smallest trailer I could find, and I still wasn't getting the fall rate I wanted, and I couldn't get consistency between the flipping baits and the flipping jigs that I was using. I could put a little Berkeley chigger bug or chigger craw on this one, and this one, I'm going to get a different fall rate. And I was like, what, why? Skirt. People, it's all about the skirt. That's one of our mottos at Sexy Skirt Tackle is, it's all about the skirt. These guys are advertising full skirts. Okay, great. The bass don't have the same eyes we have. They see color, right? But they don't care how pretty it is right off the bat. They see the color and that resembles bait to them. That's what they want. There's no reason to have a full skirt on a flipping jig. You're running a trailer behind it anyway. You're not letting it sit there for 10 minutes on the bottom and soaking. You're flipping in that hole, you're breaking it back up. You're going to the other side, flipping in the hole, bring it back up. Flip into that laydown, bring it back up. Flip back down into the other part of the laydown. All you're doing flipping is dropping it, bringing it in, dropping, bringing it in. There's no reason to have a full skirt. As a matter of fact, it hurts you on a flipping jig. So what I've done with these flipping jigs is I use a fine skirt material. This isn't a skirt material you're going to buy. This skirt material comes in sheets and I have to cut it. I cut it as fine as I can without cutting my fingers off. But you're going to get that with this jig. You are going to have the perfect weighted skirted material, right? You're going to have the perfect skirt material so that your fall rate is going to be consistent every single time, and it's going to be fast. My 1 ounce flipping jigs are going to fall faster than any aftermarket, than any other producer can make. I guarantee it. If you use the same trailer on this 1 ounce jig as any other person's 1 ounce jig, this is going to fall faster. The only jig that will come close, and I will say the name of this manufacturer because it's a great flipping jig and it's all I used before I started making my own, was the Greg Hackney series Straight King. If anybody knows Greg Hackney's name, they know that guy is flipping 100% of the time when he can. But there's the difference. He doesn't use an Arky style head. However, he does use a minimal weed guard, and a minimal skirt. It's not as bulky as the other aftermarket flipping jigs. However, his skirt material is not as fine as these. So when this falls down, if they don't get it on the initial hit, everybody, when the jig hits the bottom, you bounce it a couple times and you bring it back up. This jig will look more like a live creature. It's just sitting down there flowing. These strands are cut so thin, it's just sitting down there in the current, whatever little bit of current is there, and it's just pulsing this skirt. And I promise you that you throw this jig, this will be the last flipping jig that you will ever need to throw. Now listen, sometimes it comes down to tackle. I'm going to do other videos all about our products that we're going to sell at Skirt Tackle and we're going to make. We're going to have spinner baits. I'm still tweaking them a little bit. I'm not happy with them. I don't know if they will not be out before the spring. There's a couple of things I'm missing there, and I just can't pinpoint what it is. My buzz baits, we got bladed jigs. If they can come on a skirt, we're going to produce it, and we're going to produce it better than our competition. However, no matter what you're throwing, it's not going to do you any good if you're not throwing the right tackle. The lightest I will go with a 1 ounce is a 7-foot heavy action. Enigma makes a great flipping rod and reel. They really do. They make a great flipping reel. I have never thrown a flipping reel that is this smooth when you're running heavy braid on it. When you set that hook, it's not pulling anything. You have a hook set. This rod, I can't speak enough about Enigma rods. Listen, this is not a push for Enigma in this particular video. Right? I'm going to do some sponsor videos down the road. I'm just saying that if you're not a flipping person or an inexperienced flipping person, you cannot go out and throw a 1 ounce jig on your medium action, normal run-of-the-mill bait casting rod and bait caster setup. When you're throwing these heavy jigs, you have to have the right setup. So it might have been a little bit of an Enigma push, but I'm telling you, this is a rod and reel setup that will not break the bank account. It's going to cost you some money, and that's all right, right? We don't fish because we're broke. You can't do this sport. You can't sit in these boats and have this wall of tackle and rods everywhere for cheap. It just doesn't happen. But I will tell you that Enigma, this rod and reel, that's where it's at right there. They have put their homework in on that deal right there, and it's worth the money, and it won't break the bank account. These jigs, when I sell these, they're going to be, some jig colors are only going to come in 3/4 and 1 ounce. Look, this is the Go Big or Go Home series. All right, there has to be thousands of people out there making your standard jigs, from your 1/8 ounce, your 1/4 ounce, your 3/8, your 3/16. I'm not even going to try to compete with that market. As a matter of fact, I don't have a problem finding a jig from manufacturers in them weight ranges I like throwing. I have a whole boat full of jigs that I love, that I don't make them because I'm not going to mess with something that works. But I do like flipping jigs, and I had a problem spending a lot of money, wasting a lot of money, and a lot of time trying to find what I liked before I realized it's probably just not going to happen. So then I made my own. You will not be sorry with this jig. Back to the sizes. I'm going to have some colors are going to be offered in a 1/2 ounce, 3/4, and 1 ounce. Other colors are going to be offered in 3/4 ounce and 1 ounce, and you're going to see all that on Instagram when you go in there to place your orders, or you can always email me at sexyskirttackle@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Facebook and IM me. That'll all be up and running by the time this video is aired. And like I said, I'm going to have videos down the road of how to order, the process. But I cannot emphasize enough, this jig right here, this is the deal. This right here is the flipping jig deal. And I want to thank you for your time. I hope you learned a little bit something about flipping jigs. I hope I was able to talk you into maybe purchasing some or trying some. But I hope I really explained to you why this jig is the best on the market. And I spent a lot of money trying to figure that out. Listen, I'm not on here for subscribers. I don't intend to get a paycheck from YouTube. I don't. I would like it if you would like it and subscribe to it, please. But really what this is about is this is the platform I'm going to use to try to help my company grow. It's the platform I'm going to use to advertise, and it's a platform I'm going to use to teach you how to fish these baits so you can fish them better. This was just an introduction to our flipping jig that's going to be released here in another week or so. All right. I will do another follow-up interview, and we'll go over all rod and reel setups for all different weights of jigs. We'll have a video of basic jig introduction and the tackle you use for it. But in the meantime, check these out. You are not going to be disappointed. I love them. And I look forward to hearing about the stories of you guys catching the big ones in the spring, in the summer. Until then, Facebook friends and YouTube friends, and y'all be safe this winter. I look forward to seeing you on the water in the summer. Bye.